Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. There is a slaughter coming. There's a slaughter in progress right now, has been for a while, and most people don't realize it. But there's a bigger one coming, and that's what I want to talk about. Before we get into that, just to let you know, to remind you that I got the message from Amazon that my next load of books should be delivered to me later this week. So all of you who have been waiting on your book orders from me, you will soon be satisfied and have those books in your hands. We'll get them out to you just as quickly as we can, as soon as we get the delivery. I was reading through, doing some editing over the book that I'm currently working on. It's a modern day organized crime book. The people on the Patreon channel have already, I've said what I've told them what the title is, and I've shown them the cover that's already been designed. If you want to see it and a whole bunch of other stuff, you can join us on Patreon. That link is right down below. You get a lot more stuff there. And if you don't, that's cool too. It's up to you. But the book is about a kind of a reemerging of organized crime due to the situations in which we find ourselves now. And it's kind of the answer to a question: should you obey an immoral government and its immoral laws? So, is obedience to immorality moral or immoral? And of course, I think that the answer to that is obvious. But anyway, and I do say the tagline, the book is kind of it's a meeting of the Equalizer and the Godfather, and I think a lot of you will really enjoy it, and you'll learn a lot from it. I do get into some of the ways of how these things work. But anyway, so I was editing a little bit last night and reading through the first few chapters, and it's how an author does it. You write it, and I pretty much edit as I go along, but then I always go back and say, oh, I think I'll change a word here or there. So I want to set this up, and then I'm going to get into the slaughter of the masses. And, whether you get slaughtered, it's going to, it will depend on whether you're one of the masses or whether you're one of the properly thinking, preparedness-minded people. And the scene here is our main character. He's sitting on his back patio in the morning having his first cup of coffee. And I am drinking this morning from one of our American Reversion mugs. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. One of our most popular mugs. And so he's thinking. He's just gone through. He's skipped through a couple of news aggregators like I do every morning, and he remembered back when he used to start each day and enjoy reading the newspapers and kind of watching some news and seeing what's going on. And he says that those were simpler times before the world had discovered that none of the world could be trusted, especially the media. Now I'm going to read one paragraph here that talks about the slaughter of the masses. And I hope that doesn't apply to you, but it's going to take some work on your part and some willingness to think outside the box and to understand some things and to take some action if you're not going to be caught up in the slaughter yourself. So now I will read this paragraph. He says, in a way, he felt that was a tragedy back when, everybody thought the news could be trusted. The naivete of the Western world had allowed it to stumble along from one crisis to the next, believing that the brief intermittent periods of calm were the norm, instead of understanding that the norm was actually the chaos they tried daily to ignore. On the other hand, the growing societal cynicism had brought the world into closer alignment with what he had long understood, that while most people were little more than harmless sheep, made dangerous only by their weakness and willingness to obey, they and the world at large were run by the wolves and the lions, who understood that the purpose and fate of sheep is to be sheared, then slaughtered. Excuse me, I hit you there. There's a lot to think about there. If you think about uh, the slaughter that we have undergone and are continuing, and I think that the vast majority of people, either subconsciously, unconsciously, whatever, ignore this or don't possess the mental faculties to fully understand this. You look at the slaughter of the wars that they have put us through ever since World War One, heck, ever since the War of Northern Aggression. Okay? They have periodically started wars to winnow certain sections of our country. They said we have too many strong young men. We need to kill a lot of them, and so let's have a war. That's the way that everybody applauds a genocide of young men, is to say we're doing it out of patriotism and to for our country and to save us from whatever, the latest great evil that they want to try to convince the masses of. We're going to save the world for democracy, and we're going to save the world for democracy again and then again and then again. And of course, the masses are in their ignorance, unable to or simply won't, see the truth of the situation. So they've been slaughtering us in wars for years. They have slaughtered the masses with abortion. Think about how many people, and I don't have the figures on the top of my head. You can Google them, but they're massive. I mean, when you realize how many abortions there have been in the last 50 years, how many there are every year, it's sickening. It's just sickening. They have slaughtered the older people with their, the thing that brought on the lockdowns with the shots, and now we're finding a lot more coming out of that. There are long-term, ongoing negative consequences to some of the things that people took in order not to get the big one, right? So they've slaughtered that. They slaughter the middle ground, and they have been slaughtering the young adults. With I talked about the other day, a friend of my son's who died from a fentanyl overdose. Do you have any idea how many people are dying of fentanyl? And this is being brought in by who should be considered enemies of our country, but apparently they are the co-conspirators of the powers that be. So if you see that those things, if you see the scale of the slaughter, and you're willing to accept the truth of it, you see that they have slaughtered the unborn. They have slaughtered the younger people, young children, by bringing millions of them into, I didn't even mention this, into subsistence existence through their social welfare programs that kept so many in the lower economic realm. They couldn't even support themselves, and more children are born into that. They're slaughtering the older people and the more infirm with that thing that they brought in a few years ago. Can we say that? Can we give it a name to it here on YouTube yet? I'm not even sure, but you all know. I'm not going to take a chance, but you all know what I'm talking about. And they have been slaughtering entire generations or segments of generations with drugs that they've been bringing in since the 60s. And I know it goes back before that. I mean, marijuana was being used in the jazz clubs and cocaine, and then before that, opium. And I know that the history of drugs, it's fascinating. As well as demonic. Go back. This is how the British Empire subdued China, right? It was the impetus that brought about the Boxer Rebellion. They subdued an entire country with opium. That's what's happened here. So when you start to understand the degree and the many ways that they have slaughtered I won't. Well, okay. I'm going to stay. I almost said something, but I don't want to go down that road. Just when you understand how massive the slaughter has been over the years, you start to understand where it's all leading, and where it's all leading is more slaughter. We're coming up on an election here in just a couple of weeks. Uh, that no matter which way it goes, the slaughter is going to continue. If the Democrat gets in, the slaughter will continue the way it has been. They will be bringing in more illegals. They will be bringing in more drugs. They will be putting restrictions on American citizens through regulation and requirements for jobs and all sorts of things. They will take this, if they can, to a full-blown communist state. And that would be a hell that no sane person wants to live through. However, just like I wrote in my book, most people are just totally oblivious to this. They're sheep and they don't see it coming. If Trump wins, the communist left is going to rise up, and the slaughter will be more in your face. There will be violence and against individuals and businesses and all sorts of things. And that will be a little easier to deal with because it will be above the surface. Either way, the slaughter continues. And my question for you is, are you going to be among those in the slaughter? Are you going to be the ones? Are you in the group that is going to suffer as a result of what's coming, or not? And if you're not, what have you done to ensure that? And the way that you ensure that is that you separate yourself as much as possible from the influence of the rest of the world. Now that means the influence of the government, the influence of government restrictions and requirements, the influence of the supply chain, the influence of all of those systems over which you have little or no control. The only control that you can have over those systems is to separate yourself from the need for them. And this is what preparedness is all about. Now, I'm sure that the news and I rarely watch other channels anymore because I find that it's just and I'll tell you what, I'm not here to talk badly about other channels. I never have. I've supported other channels, but I'm here to help you and to give you some information, because most people out there, to be honest, the average normal person has no idea of the truth of life. Simple as that. Some people, some who have been in law enforcement or the military do. And not everybody. I mean, the people in law enforcement who did not work the dirty jobs, they don't have a clue. The people in the military who didn't do, who weren't out there in the field, they don't have a clue. They're normal people who work for law enforcement and military organizations. But those of us who have seen the inside of the monster understand the horrors that occur every day in this country and every other country in the world. And they are horrors that the average person, first off, doesn't want to know about. And secondly, if they did know about them, they wouldn't be able to fully comprehend. Their minds would stop them at a certain point, at the point beyond which their minds would be unable to process it all. And so that's why I say that the purpose of the sheep is to be sheared and slaughtered. And that's what happens to most of the masses. But like I say, it's up to you to decide what's going to happen to you. And that's why when I went off on this kind of a side here, I'm sure that other outlets, let's just say, will simply be coming on every day and telling you the latest bad news and the latest things that's horrible and the latest this and the latest that. And guys, you got to stop responding to this. You have to stop consuming this and needing to consume this. You have to get away from this addiction to consuming horrible everyday news, because a lot of it, well, it's all true, but it's true beyond what the purveyors of the information understand. Okay, and simply listening to it every day and thinking that somehow that has prepared you is like what I've said before. It's like the people that are just splashing around in the shallow end of the pool, and think that they're doing something. It's they're not going into the deep end. And you need to be, if you are going to live well and survive in what's coming, you need to get out there and you need to get into the deep end and you need to get into the deep understanding of what's going on. And then you need to do everything you can to separate yourself from needing anything in those external systems and essentially create your own world. You have to create your own economy. You have to create your own support systems. You have to form those systems of your own that allow you to live outside those external systems over which you have little or no control. That's what my new book is about. The new evolution of organized crime, and it's coming because the system is so corrupt. The government is corrupt. The business is corrupt. Everything is so corrupt that if a person is going to be able to provide for and sustain their family in a life that they believe in, and that means according to the will of God, they're not going to be able to continue living within the structures of the system. And so that's a decision that you have to make. The vast majority of people will say, well, yeah, that sounds good, and that's exactly right. And very, very few will actually do anything about it because they don't know how. Well, when my book comes out, maybe you'll learn a little bit how, but you need to be thinking about it now. And your decisions are going to well, they're going to decide what kind of life you live, and your kids and your grandkids. And too many people, and I'm sad every time that I see a comment in the comment section, something like, "Well, I'm old and I'm glad I'm not going to be here anymore," and blah blah blah. That's one of the most selfish and short-sighted comments I can imagine. One of the elements of the long-term successful family units or clans or whatever is a preparing or a working to strengthen the family and the clan with each new generation. And if you're not doing that, you're not preparing as much as you can. It doesn't cost anything. Well, it does. It costs a lot to raise a family nowadays. Yes, it does. But that's a cost that's worth it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Stop being consumed with the daily problem of whether there's going to be a world war or whether there's going to be this or whether there's going to be that, or is there going to be a financial collapse, and should I buy gold, and what was the latest stupid thing that Kamala says, and what was the latest thing that Trump did, and all this. And guys, I tell you, they will have effect on you. What all of these things will have an effect, but what you need to be consumed by are your efforts to insulate yourself from the effects of what's going on out there. And that's about total preparedness, and that is about separating yourself from the system as much as you can. That doesn't mean you have to move out into the woods. I mean, it's great if you do. You want to do that? Good. You want wherever you want to live. Wherever you want to live, do it there. Do it there, and it can be done. It's just up to you. Okay. All right. I hope I know there's some sheep listening to this. I hope you switch over and see the truth of the matter, because we're coming into times unlike any, I think, any of us have ever seen, and probably not seen since the War of Northern Aggression. Maybe before that. Okay, get out there and do something. Okay. By the way, for those of you waiting on your book orders, like I said, they said they'll be getting them to me later this week. I know you're eager to get them, and I'm eager to get them to you. And then I'll start telling people how to get them again. If any of you want my books and don't want to, by the way, let me say this. I just heard yesterday, if anybody's happened to be listening, no, I'll hold that off for another time. Sorry, I didn't mean to teach you like that. Remember, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. It doesn't say we worry a lot in order to live well tomorrow. It doesn't say we are frantic today to live well tomorrow. It says we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Do something. It's up to you. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.